Welcome, everyone. Let me get a little sip of water. So we hope that we have lots of friends watching on social media today, but we're especially pleased to see all of you present this morning in Santa Fe. Members of the press and media, members of our board of directors, our wonderful staff, and distinguished guests, including the Honorable Javier Gonzalez, the mayor of the city of Santa Fe. Thank you for being here. And the chairman of the board of the opera, Susan Morris. Thank you for all that you do. Of course, I'm speaking this morning from Styron Orchestra Hall, where the orchestra rehearses during the summer, and where all manner of events occur throughout the year. Now, to start us off, I'm going to call on our board president, but let me first say that today's announcement includes the lineup for the 2018 season, some updates about 2017, news about partnerships that we've forged across the country, the commissioning of new operas, and other exciting information. But now I welcome the president of the Santa Fe Opera, Susan Marino.
Thank you, Charles. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. With a spectacular season opening next month, following last summer's 60th anniversary season, the company is continuing to thrive as we plan for the future. I'm happy to give you a few remarks on behalf of the board of directors. In May 2014, we announced the Setting the Stage campaign, and it is my pleasure to report that we are nearing our objective of having raised $43.5 million towards our $45 million goal. The outpouring of support to the opera has been incredible over the last 3 years. I want to thank the board of directors who have championed both the campaign and the company. I want to thank the many wonderful donors who have directly supported the campaign, some through the Crosby Society, which is planned gifts which will preserve the legacy of our beautiful theater, and some through designation of seats in the theater. Additionally, I want to salute our campaign chairman, Susan Morris, the chairman of our board of directors, and our campaign co-chair, Chuck Moore, who heads our Building and Properties Committee. Thank you both. Stunning improvements have happened over these last 3 years. But the one that may be most noticeable to our patrons as they arrive this summer is the new and improved main patron parking lot. Capacity has been increased, the parking spaces have been delineated, and irrigation has been improved to deal with what we love, our summer rainfall that happens in the evening once in a while here. We also are improving our picnicking spaces, and the Toomey Dining Terrace is also being expanded. An additional improvement that will be seen this summer is that we have 2 new elevators on either side of our orchestra pit, and this will improve safety for stage operations as well as enhancing acoustics for our audience. Yet to come in the future is a new and improved seatback translation system, which will have many wonderful features, including digital recognition of contributors who have named seats in our theater. Now finally, and certainly not least of all by any means, I want to commend our remarkable staff. Charles MacKay, Robert Maya, and the development team on the fundraising, the fundraising side, Paul Horpedahl, and the incredible production department on the construction and the planning side, our chief financial officer, Heather Kemp, and the entire administration of the Santa Fe Opera, who have worked tirelessly to support this project, both indirectly and directly. Year after year, they have planned the coming season, and when construction subsided, they have presented a festival that has become a global destination for music lovers and a cornerstone for the local tourism industry. Thank you so much. You are an incredible staff. Well, opening night is on June 30th, and we are all very excited to see all 5 productions, as well as the much-anticipated world premiere of The Revolution of Steve Jobs. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you all very soon. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sue, for your elegant and effective leadership over the last 3 years. And I echo your thanks to all of our donors, to the board, and to our wonderful colleagues who've helped to make this entire effort possible. Now I believe I am bidden to turn your attention to the monitor for a little teaser of the 2018 season. There we are. So, if you don't know that, that was Brenda Ray, and you may have recognized the tune in the background, which comes from our opening production. So the 2018 season spans 3 centuries of opera, and this year we introduce works by 2 major American composers whose work has not been performed at the Santa Fe Opera, Leonard Bernstein and John Adams. And we also welcome works by Puccini, Rossini, and Richard Strauss, who of course are icons of the opera world. Candide by Leonard Bernstein opens the season in a production which celebrates his centenary. It is a company premiere and stars Alex Schrader, Brenda Ray, and Kevin Burdett. It will be conducted by our chief conductor, Harry Bickett, and directed and designed by Laurent Pelly. It's a really fascinating piece because Candide started out on Broadway in 1956 and then migrated to the Opera House. So is it a musical or is it an opera? You get to decide. But we understand the composer himself decided it was definitely an opera, and we are so thrilled to be bringing it to Santa Fe for the first time. The production will be underwritten by a generous gift from Bob and Ellen Vladimir, and we thank them very, very much. Puccini's exotic masterpiece, Madame Butterfly, returns in our acclaimed 2010 production by Lee Blakely. You can see an image from that production on the screen. It was one of the most popular productions in the history of the Santa Fe Opera. And the title role will be shared by Kelly Caduce and Ana Maria Martinez. And we welcome back the conductor, Yader Binyamini, who made a very successful American debut here in 2015. John Adams' monumental opera, Dr. Atomic, makes its long-awaited Santa Fe Opera debut next season. The opera is set in Los Alamos. It tells the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project in the period that ushered in the atomic age in the summer of 1945. John Adams' librettist and longtime collaborator, Peter Sellers, directs a new production which will star Ryan McKinney as Oppenheimer and Julia Bullock as his wife, Kitty. The conductor will be Matthew Aucoin, making his Santa Fe Opera debut. And this production is made possible through the generosity of Gene and Jean Stark, and we thank them very much. Now, more about Dr. Atomic in just a moment. In the sequence of production, we then come to much lighter fare with the return of Rossini's sparkling comedy L'Italiana in Algeri, The Italian Girl in Algiers, which was the runaway hit of our 2002 season. And it will star Daniela Mack in the title role, will mean the return of our bel canto specialist Corrado Rovaris as conductor, and it will give us the opportunity to present the debut for the Santa Fe Opera of Shauna Lucy, and we are delighted to welcome her in that capacity. Ariadne auf Naxos is the 5th production in our season, and we get to welcome back the beloved music of Richard Strauss, who of course was John Crosby's favorite. The production is all new, and it will mean the return of the captivating soprano Amanda Eschelaz, who heads an all-star cast for us. The stage director is Tim Albury, and the conductor will be James Gaffigan, making his Santa Fe Opera debut. Now back to Dr. Atomic. Peter Sellers is currently in China and could not be with us today, but Daniel Zillman caught up with him recently in Los Angeles to talk about Dr. Atomic.
I'm Peter Sellers. I am the director of Dr. Atomic, and I wrote the libretto working with John Adams. What's so interesting about Los Alamos history is it's absolutely bottled up. You know, what were the women doing? What were the Indians doing? Nobody talked. Nobody said a word. What was actually happening then became a kind of potted history. So for me, it was very interesting to see what you could see at Santa Fe, at Los Alamos, at the Trinity test site, but also to notice what you can't see. And libretto, therefore, is made out of poetry because it's about being able to imagine what you're not being told and what you can't actually touch or see. And it's also, a lot of the libretto is made out of classified documents. I really wanted to see what the American people were not allowed to know or see or hear. And I'm very proud that, you know, super classified documents that have been obtained through the Freedom of Information Act are now set for chorus and orchestra and are like being broadcast, you know, out there in a democracy, of course. And to me, that's one of the great functions of opera, is to take people's secrets and to take the secrets of civilizations and take the secrets of entire swaths of history and not just whisper them, sing them. Sing them aloud with power and with some kind of grace, and create something that you have a visceral reaction to, and you go, oh my God. Something unspoken that's not allowed to be spoken, therefore has to be sung. John Adams has all his life been obsessed with the desert. And for years and years and years, every year he makes a trip to the Southwest. So, hello, Santa Fe Opera, yes. There it is. This is the landscape. There it is. And so we don't exactly have to build a set because, you know, we're actually on location. This is on location. That is so thrilling. And there are the mountains right there. There is this amazing night sky, which is that night at Alamogordo, waiting for permission to detonate the bomb. That is the night sky all of these nervous scientists are contemplating. And hello, there it is. So in a certain way, it's not going to be about the set. What it is here we are, it's all these human beings together, both the performers and the audience, saying, hello, what are we and where are we in the universe? Every John Adams piece has dance in it because John's music, you just can't sit still. It's very important that we're not in any way recreating the dances, sacred dances from the Pueblos, but we are acknowledging what movement does in human life and what it means to actually put your belief system in your body. and what it means to recognize that just like particle physics and just like, advanced nuclear engineering, it's not just intellectual. It's very physical. It's very physical. And so the presence of dance and dancers, in a world of scientists who are making a lot of equations is very, very important to keep the total picture going. And that's why dance is absolutely the heart and soul of the piece and in John's music.
Thank you, Peter Sellers, off in China. And obviously, we cannot wait to have Peter Sellers with us on location. And by the way, the background music is not by John Adams. I'm not sure where that came from. But anyway, I now have the great pleasure of introducing a very distinguished guest, the Director of Los Alamos National Laboratory, Dr. Charles MacKay.
Well, thank you, Charles. In my view, there's not much distance between scientific creativity and artistic creativity. And when the upstage doors over there open up, and you look through the stage, and you see the lights up on the Jemez Mountains, you're seeing Los Alamos. Now, we physicists have kind of funny ways of measuring distance. We normally do it by how long light takes to travel between things. It works great for intergalactic distances. So on that time scale, it takes just a little over 100 millionths of a second for the light that's coming from the Jemez Mountains to get here to the Santa Fe Opera. That's nothing. So what better place is there to erase even that gap than here at the Santa Fe Opera? By bringing together both the scientific creativity and the artistic creativity on stage. I don't think there's a better place. The kind of creative challenges that faced my predecessors up on the Hill is as they worked to try to protect our nation in time of war are really very little different today in a fundamental way that my colleagues and I face, the creative challenges. But it's also the case that the ethical dilemmas of 1945, which I think are very graphically portrayed in Dr. Atomic, are not that different than the ones that we face today. So as the libretto and the music of Dr. Atomic bring together those challenges, I can't think of a better place than here. We're better. Now, we often think of scientists as scientists and artists as artists. But just as the opera brings those two forms of creativity together, we find that in individuals as well. Robert Oppenheimer was obviously a reader of poetry. We think of him as quoting John Donne, Charles Baudelaire, and the Bhagavad Gita. But it's actually the case that he was also a poet himself. And one of his fellow physicists, Charles Dirac, who we know today for the Dirac equation, said of Oppenheimer, "I do not see how a man can work at the frontiers of physics and write poetry at the same time. They are in opposition. In science, you want to say something that nobody knew before in words which everyone can understand. In poetry, you're bound to say something that everyone knows already in words that no one can understand." In Los Alamos, we remember Oppenheimer not only as a poet, but also as a performer. In the 1944 performance of Arsenic and Old Lace that was done at the Los Alamos Little Theater, a company that's still in production, I would remind you, Oppenheimer played the corpse in the window box. And it was said that he wanted to be part of the production, but he didn't want to have lines. The Santa Fe Opera plays a vital role here in our community. It's more than just a beautiful performance space, and it certainly is that, Charles. But by staging material that asks us to examine some of the most complex ethical issues that face our generation, The opera creates a space where we can come together, have a shared experience, and from that shared experience, hopefully gain understanding. I look forward to next year's performance of Dr. Atomic here in the community that we share. I believe that the opera explores themes that have played here in New Mexico 75 years ago and have continued to play on the world stage ever since. What started here, just a few miles away, changed the world. What better place to explore that as we go forward?
Thank you so much, Charlie. And by the way, I would say that Charlie himself is an avid musician, particularly involved in the Baroque period. So I count on seeing him at this coming season's performances of Alcina and several other operas. But thank you very, very much for being with us today. I believe next that I move on to 2017 updates. A few quick announcements. We'll be having an open house here at the Opera on May 20th, and it's a great opportunity to come and explore, get behind the scenes, take note of all of the improvements that have been done over the last couple of years, and also perhaps to visit the opera shop. And in that spirit, I am pleased today to unveil the 2017 poster by one of Santa Fe's great artists of the 20th century, Gustav Baumann. And incidentally, Mr. Baumann and his wife Jane, and their daughter Anne were very much involved in the Santa Fe Opera. And Mrs. Baumann, in fact, served on the board early in the days of the opera. And Gustav Baumann designed the first stationery for the Santa Fe Opera, as a matter of fact. But we're very pleased to have this. The title of the color wood block from 1943 is Cottonwood in Tassel. And so we have a lot of creativity taking place from the 1940s in this area when you think about Dr. Atomic and Baumann making his prints. But this will be available for purchase starting May 20th when we have the open house. Today, we're very pleased to announce a program entitled Justice at the Opera, featuring our apprentice singers and U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, as you know, is a great fan of opera and a great fan of the Santa Fe Opera. The apprentices will perform scenes from opera dealing with law and justice, and then the justice will comment on those scenes. It is a one-time only event which will take place Friday afternoon, August 25th, at the Lenzik Performing Arts Center. Tickets will go on sale May 19th, and of course we do expect a sellout. Today, we're very pleased to have with us the executive director of the Lenzik, Joel Alberts. Thank you so much for joining us and for continuing this great spirit of collaboration between the Santa Fe Opera and the Lenzik. Now, speaking of collaborations, we are delighted to announce that the Seattle Opera and the San Francisco Opera will be co-conveners for this season's The Revolution of Steve Jobs. We're simply delighted about this and the fact that the Seattle Opera and the San Francisco Opera are also co-producers for Steve Jobs, along with Indiana University's Jacobs School of Music. So the production that will be built, that's being built right now, and will be first performed on our stage, will travel to all three locations, and we believe to locations beyond. Next, I would like to welcome Daniel Zillman to the stage to speak about some of our social media initiatives for this summer. Daniel.
Thank you, Charles, and I apologize for the technical difficulties today and the late start. This year, as in past years, we will be having Insta-meets, but this time for all 5 of our productions. Last year, we had them for 2 of them and had an engagement of 1.25 million people on Instagram and about 6 million people on Twitter because of those 3 events. So we look forward to continuing our relationship with Simply Social Media and having those on the final dress rehearsals of all 5 of our productions this year. Next, I'd like to introduce Andrea Fellows-Walters, Director of Education and Community Programs.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Charles. Please know that I stand here representing an investment of many people who gave richly and greatly of their time and expertise. And I'm grateful to represent them in announcing these 2 initiatives. The first is Tech in the West. Tech in the West is presented in association with the Revolution of Steve Jobs this summer and Dr. Atomic next summer. It is a series of events spanning 2 years that includes films, concerts, talks, and symposia. Partners for Tech in the West are the Los Alamos Historical Society, the New Mexico History Museum, Santa Fe Institute, and the Toma Foundation. An advisory with representation from all partners led by Jean Stark, thank you, Jane, derived 4 key themes for Tech in the West: legacy, creative expression, modern-day Prometheus, and sense of place. This year, the focus is upon legacy and creative expression. While the New Mexico History Museum is the home for Tech in the West, additional events will be presented by Chatter, the Cinematique at the Center for Contemporary Arts, the Lensic Center for the Performing Arts, Patina Gallery, and Currents New Media. For a full schedule, please see our website. So the second of these initiatives is Opera for All Voices, Stories of Our Time. This initiative was born out of a growing awareness that as attention turned to developing new audiences, there were not many operas from which to choose. Expanding conversations actually, that began with colleagues at San Francisco Opera, represented today by my colleague Ruth Knott, we joined with 5 other companies: the Lyric Opera of Kansas City, Minnesota Opera, Opera Theater St. Louis, Sarasota Opera, and Seattle Opera, to form a consortium that grappled with this question: could we collectively commission artists to write engaging, relevant new opera for an audience of varying ages and interests while mindfully maximizing the resources of time and money? Just that question. So over many months, we grappled, and we arrived at Opera for All Voices. With deep gratitude for the support of the Melville Hankins Family Foundation and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and on behalf of the consortium, today we announce commissions of 2 new works by acclaimed composers and librettists, and an invitational for composers and librettists to submit works for consideration that will be reviewed by an esteemed jury of individuals working in our field for 2 additional commissions. I'm pleased to introduce to you today the creators for the 2 commissions. Laura Kaminsky and Kimberly Reed, composer and librettist, will create a work that will premiere in San Francisco in the spring of 2020. And Augusta Reed Thomas, composer, and Jason Kim, librettist, who was unable to join us today, will create a work that will premiere in Santa Fe in the fall of 2019. They will stay on, so you'll have an opportunity to meet and talk with them after the news conference. And now I direct your attention to a video featuring these creative voices who speak far more eloquently than I on Opera for All Voices.
When I hear the phrase all voices, I think I think of it in 2 different ways. You hear from all voices as the creators, and I think the subject matter that you're actually talking about needs to focus on all voices.
It's for your mom, it's for your dad, it's for your child, it's for your daughter, it's for your son, it's for your uncle, it's for your aunt.
I think that opera is probably one of the first art forms that kids can really enjoy, because there's people telling stories and they're all dressed up and they move around and it's colorful.
For audiences of all ages, I think it's not a question of accessibility. That's a sort of a loaded word, but really just immediacy.
Opera demands people to sit and have a communal experience, which for me is the greatest thing about theater, is that you're going through an emotional journey together.
In smaller scale opera, I love that there are fewer characters, so each one gets to be more fully realized.
If you can take new material and tell a story that's based on I think, real characters who are people that you might know in everyday life instead of archetypes, that you can have an aesthetic experience as an audience that is just, it's more than you're going to get listening to music. It's more than you're going to get listening to a story. When you marry those two, it's unsurpassable.
With this particular project, we've been asked to tell stories that are relevant, that are about the world that we live in today, that are about people you could know.
For me, what's important is to get people who have never experienced opera to be able to see something and understand what they're seeing and have an emotional experience.
When I think of the art form opera, for some reason my mind just traces like 400 years of history. We go back to what it was and what it became, and then grand opera and so on and so forth. And so we might think, okay, opera's old. It's 400 years old, it's gone through all kinds of wonderful, flexible changes. But another way to think of it is that opera is young.
The people who are going to be making these works, for the most part, are younger and are the youth of today, the young professionals committed to the work of now. And I think that currency is so important.
Thank you very, very much, Andrea, for introducing the program, and thank you to our participants on the video, which was truly, truly inspiring. And this is a very happy and auspicious day for our company, and I think for the field of opera. So our congratulations to Augusta Reed-Thomas, Laura Kaminsky, Kimberly Reed, and Jason Kim. And we wish you very, very well. Today, as we're about to wrap up, I wanted to note a chronological milestone that in the summer of 2017, my good colleague Brad Woolbright will be celebrating his 40th season with the Santa Fe Opera. I know this because I was his first boss here 40 years ago. But we congratulate him for all of his great work as Director of Artistic Administration, and thank him so much for his steadfast service and wonderful spirit. Thank you, Brad. I must also extend special thanks to all of our department heads, Paul Horpedahl, Brad Woolbright, Heather Kemp, Robert Maya, Tom Morris, Andrea Fellows-Walters, Liz Kellogg, Laura Hudman, and Daniel Zillman. And I want to salute everyone who makes this enterprise possible: our loyal patrons, our contributors, our board members, and our incredible staff, which swells from 70 during the off-season to around 700 during the summer. I would invite you to stay and join us for lunch, and most of all, to thank you once again for being with us. It's great to see you all.